Hey guys, Cameron here with Emerson Property Management, and Miss Lola's here. Every week I bring you tools, tactics, strategies, lessons I've learned, things that helped me build up a sizable rental portfolio in about 2 years. Now manage that portfolio. Today, guys, I want to talk through a couple different things. One, these are both kind of in the same vein. Sorry, she's a little tired. She's already getting bored, only 30 seconds in. Properties that we do not manage. So I want to talk through our criteria. Sometimes this comes up, hey, what kind of properties do you manage? What kind of properties do you like? Your manage box, if you're an investor, your buy box. But this is also something to be weary of if you are an investor. So these are things that we have found are a little bit outside the normal management, and they can create issues for management companies, but also for owners. The criteria that I'm going to share with you is stuff, again, that we won't manage or our managed box, but also something I think you should take into consideration when buying the property, because even if you're doing your own management, this stuff could be difficult for you. So before I get into that, guys, like, subscribe. If you find this valuable, I don't want any charity likes or shares, but if you think there's somebody that would find value in this, share it with them, please, or give us a like, comment below. We appreciate all that. Any feedback. Okay, so what do we manage? And again, there's a reason behind this. I'll walk through each of these. There's a huge list, so I don't have my little fancy whiteboard to talk through. I've got them over here. The first one is no water wells. So why is that, Cameron? Well, my gosh, to find somebody that services water wells is very unique. It's very expensive, and it's not like going out with, you have a plumbing issue and you have a plumber all over town. So if you are buying on the fringes, usually this happens way outside of Houston, you'll find yourself on a water well. It can create all sorts of issues. If something does come up, it's usually expensive. Pumps are pretty expensive. Drilling a new well, pulling it, going back down with the pipe, it can be expensive. So if you are going to buy, just make sure that you have somebody who knows how to handle that stuff, or that's one of your vendors on that list. For us, it's difficult to try to find somebody all over town, and especially somebody that's going to meet our vendor qualifications. So we do not manage properties that are on wells. The second one is kind of similar to this, is no septic tanks. So I personally have a couple properties on wells and septic tanks. And I can tell you, we don't manage these anymore because, now if you're a current owner with them, we'll continue to take care, but we're phasing these out. We're not taking on any new clients with this. They're difficult. We have some of these older properties. One of my personal properties was converted from a single family home to a duplex, and the septic system was not upgraded. It was kind of grandfathered in. We have to go out quarterly and clean the septic. That costs several $100s. So something, if you're not taking into consideration that cost, that can really eat into your profits. An extra $1,200 a year in septic tank cleaning is $100 a month. If you thought you were going to make $100, now you're breaking even. If you were happy to break even, now you're losing $100 a month. So again, septic tanks are another specialty that you'll have to take into consideration with a specialized vendor. Utilities not separately metered. If you have a duplex, triplex, or quad, it creates all sorts of issues with chargebacks and making sure that the appropriate tenants are being billed. When you write up the lease, you have to make sure there are certain considerations regarding how much usage. Are we just going to get the bill and divide it evenly based on square footage? It can be done, but it just creates some headaches always amongst the tenants. So we don't do that anymore. No owners living on the property. So we've done this before. You guys have heard a great strategy of house hacking. It's a fantastic strategy. I love it. However, it does create a lot of issues because the tenants in the front figure out that the owner lives in the back. They go have a chat with him. It creates a real issue for us as a management company. For you, if you're doing this yourself, that can also create an issue for you. If they know that you live back there, it's easy tax record search, unless you bought it in an LLC and didn't name it, Cameron Tope LLC, then you might be able to skirt away with it, but it does create a lot of issues when you're on the property. We cannot be on the property all the time. And really, as an owner, when you're on the property, tenants ask you for things that can create issues. No Airbnb or short-term rentals. I've talked about this in length in other videos, and it's just a different business model. So you want to make sure that you're handling that differently with a property management company that specializes in Airbnb, or if that's you, that you understand Airbnb and you run Airbnb. We don't do anything furnished. This creates a bunch of headaches with when you have a furnished property, because there's I can go on and on around why this creates issues. Deposit deductions, useful life. Oh, this couch, they damaged this couch. It tore it all to Timbuktu. Well, that couch is 5 years old. Is that the usable life of the couch? 5 years? Or is it 10 years? I just bought it, so I only get a fifth for that. Or you might have something that's a family heirloom, maybe something that's special to you that you have in the property that's furnished. That is irreplaceable. You're only going to get what the market value is of that, or the depreciated life. So furnished properties create a lot of issues. The move-in condition form can be problematic. I do not recommend anybody to rent things furnished. Again, if you're going to do that with another management company that specializes in that. The short term, you don't really have that much wear and tear. I think over time you do, but each little stay you might have a little mark here or there, but you're not really doing a bunch of deposit deductions. If you have a furnished place and you're doing a year lease, you can see a lot of damage. So just take that into consideration. We don't do any high crime areas. If I don't feel comfortable walking around there or sending my fiance out there by herself, I don't want to go out there. We have too many contractors. We're on the property too much, at all hours of the day and weekends, holidays. If it's a high crime area, I'm not going to put any of our people at risk, and I don't want to put tenants at risk. It's a different tenant profile. We don't do Section 8, which comes up kind of with that. I'll just cover that now. We don't handle Section 8. That's also a different tenant profile. It's a different way to collect income. It's very difficult to deal with the housing authority. So if you're going to get into that, make sure you specialize in that and understand it. I actually when we were doing Section 8, we had the housing authority send us about $6,000 of somebody else's money. And we held it in the account and kept contacting them for about 3 months until they took the funds back out. So that was somebody's money. It's very difficult, especially when we do distributions on the second Friday of every month. We're very regimented and process oriented. When you have a system like the housing authority that seems to be totally in a cluster, that's very difficult to manage. Also for you, as a property owner, it's a different animal. You have to be patient with them. There's other little bits and pieces that they require of you, inspections and whatnot. So some people love it, we don't. Also, an hour from downtown. Again, I was talking about earlier with the wells and the septic. We have fantastic vendors that I've spent literally 10 years. I've been in this business 10 years this year. That we have developed all our relationships with them. We can only cover about an hour from downtown. When you start getting too far out, if you go over to Beaumont or way down south to Freeport, the trip charges alone are going to eat you up. It's better to have somebody local there. So if you're going to be doing stuff in Beaumont or way out west or super far north, find somebody local that handles that. That's going to be a better fit for you. And I don't care what that is. I mean, you can take that across anything. If you buy a property in Dallas, you don't want somebody in Houston managing that. You want somebody who's familiar with that area, who has properties in that area, who understands the tenant profile, has a process for handling those types of properties. You want to stick with management companies who know that area. This is another one. We must have central air. Why, Cameron? Well, I can tell you, managing window units is a pain in the rear end. I have done this multiple times. I have personal properties that do not have central air. We are not taking on anymore because you have to put window units in. They have to be able to heat and cool. If not, you're running the risk of tenants putting in baseboard heaters or gosh knows what that create fire hazards. So just be cognizant of that. If you're not going to go with central air, especially in Houston, you're going to have maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 window units. The tenants always abuse those, which then adds between $400 and $600 to replace those. We never get more than 5 or 6 years out of those, so we stop providing those. But then on the turnover, you have to put those in for showings and whatnot. I mean, the Houston heat, it's 100 degrees at the time of this recording in July. So you need those. Moisture issues if you don't have them, mold, I can go on and on, but you want central air. Again, that's also, we don't manage it without central air, but also if you're buying it, unless you're in a different area, again, I'm speaking in Texas, you want central air. I have some properties in Ohio. That's not really a big place for central air. It doesn't get that hot. You maybe have a couple months of heat. The ability to have self-showings. So what does that mean? We don't want a bunch of gates and key fobs that need to be given because we have to change that stuff between each tenant. So it creates another wrinkle or part of the process that we have to have. If we forget to do that, and I have another video up here regarding making sure what you have to do between tenants on property code, rekeying, checking all the security devices, resetting garage door remotes and whatnot, but being able to get access to the property with vendors, with agents. If we have to get through a gate every time, how do we share that with everybody? You put a lockbox on the front entrance or gate of the community, it's very difficult. So we don't manage those. And then that goes kind of in the other piece, the key fob access. It's a pain. We currently at the time of this recording manage about 120 properties. If you could imagine if we had all 120 properties with key fobs, I would be walking around with, it would look like a tire around my waist. I mean, we cannot manage that effectively. It's just a different process. So if you're in an area with a lot of key fob access and a lot of gated communities, maybe another management company has that process, or you do if you're a single owner and you have 1 to 3 properties or 5, no problem. But you just have to make sure you have that in your process to reset those and manage that when you have a vendor go out. How does the vendor get access if the tenant's not out of the property, they're out of vacation, a water pipe bursts? What do? You have to get that fob to the vendor. So it creates issues and it can lead to property damage, for lack of a better term. There's other issues with it, but property damage is probably the most significant. Here in Houston, we have pipes burst all the time. I say all the time. When temperatures get low, we have pipe bursting issues here in Houston. And if we cannot get access or get a vendor to get access to the property, you could be looking at a water line running wide open in your home for hours or days. Lola didn't like that either. Guys, that was it. I talked through everything. Hey, I talked through everything. Apparently we are done. Lola got fired up and she liked that it was over with. So I hope that was all helpful. If it was, let me know. If it wasn't, let me know. Y'all have now our manage box if you're looking to manage, but also I think there are several tips in there that are helpful for you if you're looking to buy a property. These are things that are rarely talked about. And I really didn't know these things to look for when I was buying properties. So I have some properties that fit this profile. And it's a pain in the rear end. And there are extra costs, extra things to think about. When you only have 1 or 2 properties, you're probably really not considering them. So I hope that was helpful. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all next week.